I boarded a 5 o'clock flight to Florence Airport. After all the preparation I put into this trip, then the 10-hour flight, I still didn't know what to expect. Spinocchia, an organic farm located in the hills of Tuscany. This is the location that me and my classmates spent most of our time staying at one of the houses off the beaten path of the city. The main goal of our trip to Italy was to learn more about sustainable living with regards to eating and agriculture. We learned how to cook our own meals, we harvested crops, and even painted the beautiful Tuscan scenery. Among other things, we got a chance to see a local Tuscan winery named Colombaia. As I was interested in finding out more about sustainable wine growing, I brought along a 4K video camera that I had saved up for and was hoping to make good use of it. We hit the road on Thursday morning to Colombaia in anticipation of what we were going to learn. Not every recording I captured turned out as I had planned, but with the quality footage that I did get, I was able to say for sure whether Colombaia was sustainable or not. Now you may be wondering, what does sustainable actually mean? Sustainability is defined as causing little or no damage to the environment and therefore being able to continue for a long time. In other words, sustainability is more than just the conservation of resources. The aim is to create a system that allows growers to meet their needs in the present while also allowing future generations to meet their needs. This is done in various ways that differ from one another based on the product that is being grown. For wine growing, it means to take steps towards being sustainable with regards to energy use, soil waste, pollution awareness, and biodiversity. I'll expand upon these later, but first I'll show you clips from the tour given to us by Helena, a co-owner of Colombaia.
and Canaiolo, very typical grapes of Tuscany. Here we work in the biodynamic conduction. This means grass all over. We just cut and we leave on the soil, so this protects the soil from heavy sun but also heavy rain. So it's very important to maintain the softness and the life in the soil. And then the conduction is totally biodynamic, so this means that we don't use any kind of pesticide or kind of also manure or fertilization. It's all given by the grass and the flowers and the different rotation that give to the soil some nutriments for the grapes. Okay? So it's like a forest. You create a stratification of different green manure, then that create life in the soil, and so soil is soft and easy to penetrate by the root, and grapes don't need so much nourish in a sense of nutriments. Like they don't need so much, they just need the minerals that are in the soil effectively. So the most deeper they go, the most minerality you can find in the wine then as a result.
So what Helena is saying here is that with what she calls biodynamic conduction, they're able to keep nutrients in the soil without needing to feed it as much because of the mulch that is turned into the soil. They also use no chemical pesticides in order to maintain the health in the soil. You'll hear her use the word biodynamic a lot in this, which I will explain later.
And then you have soil that gives different, so location is very important. And then how you work it, in a sense that if it's healthy and natural, you have probably all the perfumes and the essence of the place. If it's chemical industrial, probably there is not anymore the original essence and flavor of the grapes, but there are yeast added, flavor added, so it's like drinking Coca-Cola. You don't have any references. So what we try to do effectively is to maintain this beautiness. We harvest by hand, of course, in the bottle without any artificial intervention and additives. Wine, anyway, it's part of the culture related to food, but of course it's a substance that alterates your nervous system. So it's very important not to exaggerate it, but also to have something very pure, from my point of view, because we thought that we are effectively producing alcohol. So what we try to do is to do something really pure that doesn't affect too much your body, and is very good with food and doesn't make you stoned at all. Because stonedness given by the alcohol is not only the rapidity you drink, that of course give you some sense of stoned, but also is the quantity of substance that are added in the wine. Of course, I'm not speaking about super alcohol, that is a different story, but there are more than 250 additives in the chemical industrial wine. So what happens?
So you don't use any sulfites at all?
No, we try not to use any, or if it's necessary, just a little bit, if it's necessary. But also we don't add any other things.
Yeah.
That no yeast, no collage, no colorant, no additives of any kind. There are many.
So I decided to ask her about GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, and if that took place in any process of winemaking.
We don't have. In Italy there is a very restrictive law on that. There are, of course, probably some influences, especially in the cultivation of wheat and maize, this kind of cultivation. They have the big problem of some genetical motive. But the problem of in the grapes doesn't exist, this problem, because grapes they don't need bees, or they are just self-producing. I mean, they produce the flower and the flower produces the fruit. They don't have needed of being inseminated by the insect.
So, we know that Colombia's wine is organic, but is excluding any use of additives or chemical pesticides sustainable per se? I would argue that it is, because chemicals and additives are not only bad for the consumer of the wine, but also for the workers that harvest the grapes. By not adding anything that could be harmful to the body, Colombia is maintaining a healthy product and environment, which is definitely sustainable. This once again ties back to biodynamic wine growing, a standard that Colombia and some other Tuscan wineries operate by. If you're wondering what biodynamic means, I'll put it in the simplest terms. Biodynamic wine growing is based on an ethos written and theorized by Australian philosopher Rudolf Steiner in the early 20s, instructing said farmers that there can be no synthetic chemicals or additives of any kind. They also go by a celestial calendar with earth days, water days, fire days, and air days that tells them what to do with the crops, all in accordance with the moon and the planets. They must be almost entirely self-sustaining and raise other crops and animals in order to be a complete farm. There's even a certification for biodynamic wine. This might sound like a completely sustainable system, which in many ways it is, but some would argue that the one element missing is economic sustainability. Helena told us how last year her winery yielded next to nothing, and even good seasons yielding almost 10,000 bottles cannot compete with corporate vineyards that can yield 100 times as much. So it tends to beg the question, is it possible for biodynamic vineyards to be truly sustainable, even though they cannot maintain consistent outcomes or compete with corporate wine production? Helena would argue that it is. In fact, she would argue that Colombia's biodynamic wine is even more sustainable than that of other corporate wineries.
For me, from my point of view, industry have a lot influences the winemakers for itself. So they give them the impression that they can have more of what they get. And this make them in this stress to alterate, to have different results. This for me is like chirurgy plastic, you know. You can think that beautiness is 90, 60, 90 blue eyes and blonde, and this is the beautiness for canon. And the wine is the same. Now you can think that, oh, have to be dark, deep, 7 of acidity, I don't know, 13 of alcohol, blah, blah. This is the same, but beautiness is a more complexity, and the real beautiness is something that comes from what it is. So if you alterate this, you start to alterate and you never stop. And when you never stop, you don't know what you get effectively. So this is our point of view.
This way of thinking applies to almost all facets of Colombia's winemaking. Helena showed us the grape press that she uses and explained her distaste for industrial wine squeezers.
Our point of view, this squeezer cook the grapes and burn also the seeds, so you have a lot of tannin left over of tannin. We don't like tannin so much. I mean, Sangiovese is very tannic for itself in terms of grapes. Very delicate, very elegant, but also very tannic. But if you squeeze a lot or you work striveful on the Sangiovese, you can have an extreme tannin. That is not our point. We like digestive, easy, light wine. Okay? So we try not to touch too much and to have this softness in the tannin.
For the rest of the tour, we got to see Colombia's wine cellars, their bottle makers, and finally, at long last, we got a chance to taste the wine. I, along with every one of my classmates, were very pleased with the taste. Not that we're experts. But we learned a lot from this experience. Although biodynamic winemaking may seem dated or even crazy to Americans who don't care about organic winemaking, it's a movement that has grown and thanks to wineries like Colombia, and organic sustainable wine is gaining more and more popularity. When sustainability becomes the normal, we can all look forward to a bright future.